and welcome to the Mariah Jean Fit YouTube channel. I'm Coach Mariah. Make sure you like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos as much as possible so we can reach a broader audience. We appreciate your support and enjoy the video. Today's podcast and vlog is focused on self-sabotage. We have all fallen into the trap of sabotaging our own success at some given point in time in our lives. I've done it, I still do it every now and then. It is something that we don't really realize we're doing. It's a subconscious way of thinking and behavior and thought patterns, and it can cost us some of the most rewarding experiences of our lives because of the self-sabotage, because we are literally, snowballing after we've made a mistake, or we're beating ourselves up, or we've got these negative thought patterns that keep cycling around about ourselves. So what does self-sabotage look like? How do we identify if we are literally self-sabotaging, whether it's most of the things in your life, whether it's some of the things in your life? Where can we identify that? So let's dive into that. I've got a few points on that today to discuss. So obviously, one of the self-sabotage behaviors I want to talk about is beating yourself up when you've made a small mistake. And literally, there aren't many mistakes in life. There are probably going to be some doozies that are pretty big, but there aren't many of the mistakes on a daily basis that we make that are going to ruin everything, right? We know that those small things and decisions and changes in time are not going to completely unravel everything that we've worked hard for. But in the moment, we can convince ourselves that that mistake is the biggest screw up of our lives. And it's there where the self-sabotage begins. It's literally like planting that seed of doubt, right? And it could be anything. It could be with your nutrition. You could find that you've fallen off track with your macros. You might not have hit your macros for the day, or you haven't followed your meal plan, or you went and had a big binge eating episode. And it's usually after this where we see the self-sabotage. Sometimes the self-sabotage can literally be that binge eating episode. It could be an emotional eating episode. There's lots of different ways of identifying the differences between them. I'll do another vlog and podcast on that another day. But the important thing is that from this self-sabotage, we see this happening in the early stages from the outside. People see it from the outside. We never see it while we're in it. It's because it's a subconscious thing. We're actually not consciously doing it. It consciously takes effort, yes, to say nasty things about yourself and to talk badly about yourself, but it's a subconscious thing because we learn it as a repetitive behavior. It's why sometimes we can get really stuck in the same ways. We can get stuck with our food choices. We can get stuck with patterns of maybe abusing things like alcohol and even drugs in some cases as well. We can get stuck with thinking certain things about our bodies, our personalities, who we are within our career. And so a lot of this self-sabotage, it actually stems from the idea we already have of ourselves. We've already convinced ourselves that we are this person and that we're not capable of being better. And with that narrative, we carry the self-sabotage onwards because we don't ever want or need to get out of that comfort, that negative circle of comfort. And I see this a lot with clients, is that they will come to me originally with incredibly negative thinking patterns about themselves. There'll be a lot of self-deprecation. There'll be a lot of self-doubt. And as we progress in coaching, it's actually a subliminal thing I'm doing, but I'm actually slowly teaching the client how to celebrate things that are good about their life and about themselves, and about what they've achieved with their fitness and their nutrition, what they're achieving even from other goals and perspectives in their lives, things like their relationships, their career, helping them with those, I suppose, the mentorship side of life. That's not necessarily a deep dive into psychology. I'm not a psychologist, and that's something I need to reiterate. I'm not a psychologist, but I love life mentorship, and I love being able to help people see things differently, because perspective can literally change your experience. So a couple more signs of self-sabotage, other than being able to beat yourself up or beating yourself up when you are experiencing, mistakes and things that you're doing wrong, that you think that are going to unravel all of your hard work. You put other people's happiness before your own. So this is a massive telltale sign of self-sabotage. It's I don't matter and everybody else does. And this can see you putting things like your children, your spouse, your friends and family before you and your needs. Probably I see this the most common with parents, is that they have children, they have a family, they have a marriage, and they all of a sudden become this person who is fully invested in everybody else's needs except their own. And so therefore, as a direct result, you see things like your health goes on the back burner. You see things like not just your physical health, your mental health goes on the back burner. And you see yourself spiraling and then all of a sudden resenting your life. It's like, I do all these nice things for all these people to make them happy, and yet I'm so unhappy. And it is probably because they're so focused on everyone else's happiness except their own, Everybody else's happiness matters more than theirs does. So when you put other people's happiness above yours, and it's not even a case of, your kids are important, 100%. Your spouse is important. Your family is important. They're all important to you. These are all very important roles and figures in your life and people who, definitely need you in their lives. However, and I say this all the time to my parents, if you're not good to yourself, how can you be good to other people? If you do not treat yourself well first, how are you meant to put that good energy out into the world? How are you meant to take care of anyone else if you're running on low all the time? If you're irritable all the time, if you don't like yourself, then you're setting that example for your family members, your friends, your children, right? And I talk about children a lot. I don't have any children myself just yet, but I talk about children a lot because we have to understand that the way that we talk about ourselves in front of our kids is very influential. And in front of young people, I'm very mindful of the way I speak about myself in front of young people because, this is how I learnt the things I learnt when I was younger and first kind of diving into the world of health and fitness and nutrition and mental health. So looking at that, you put other people's feelings before yours. And when you know that you're doing that, it's very hard to stop doing it, but it doesn't mean you can't. And it also means that if you do really tackle this as well and think about it and think, hold on, if I do start taking care of myself and just little things on the daily, what difference will that make in the lives of the people that you are around? What difference will it make to the quality time that you do spend with the people who mean something to you? And what difference will it make to how much they see you taking care of themselves? And they'll actually find value in that. And it is a really good way to teach people how to respect you as well, is to, change that, is to change the way that you treat yourself, is to publicly show yourself self-love. Easier said than done. This whole self-love phenomena of late is fantastic. It's great to promote self-love, 100%. It is a very hard process to undo those thought patterns, the way you've convinced yourself of who you are for years, right? And especially from a physical perspective, if you're looking at fat loss, if you're looking at, changing your nutrition, etc., a lot of this will be that you think that you're stuck that way. And you've said, I've always struggled with this. I've always been this way. That's another self-sabotage. Saying to yourself that you can't change and saying to others that you're not capable of change, you're pretty much signed, sealed and delivered, promising to other people that you can't change and that you can't do things that will improve your health. And by doing that, you're pretty much convincing yourself it's okay. I'll just keep doing this. I've always done it this way and my life has always been this way. And it's easy and it's convenient for me to sit here, so I'll just keep here because it's safe. It's not scary changing, right? And I was there years ago. I drank a lot of alcohol. I was, I've talked about this before. I was anorexic. I was bulimic. And I was stuck in these thought patterns of once I've got here, getting out of here is too hard, especially if it was something that was solidified as a coping mechanism, something that I'd done to cope with what I was going through. And it takes a lot. It takes a lot to change that away from something that we know is fundamentally not good for you to something that is, to exercising regularly, to, having adequate nutrition, eating enough, not under eating, not trying to starve yourself to diet, not trying to deprive yourself of those foods that you enjoy. And a lot of it will be that. It'll be going through these big swings of deprivation, food deprivation, or it might be deprivation. You might even say to yourself, I've spent too much money this week and I'm not going to get myself anything nice for months on end now because I was terrible then. And so there's this constant punishment, for doing the wrong thing all the time. And we're really getting into these punishment patterns. It doesn't actually achieve anything. It doesn't. telling yourself that you're a piece of shit, telling yourself you don't like yourself, telling yourself that you're an awful person, that you're not happy with what you see in the mirror, that no one likes you. All of these things will not actually achieve any sort of change, and also it's not going to make your experience of life really of great quality. You know, you're stuck with this mind and body that you have, except you can change your mind and body. That's the interesting thing. You actually have this mind and body, but you can change it. It's not even just the way you look, but the way you feel, the way that you function, the way that you think, who you interact with, who you surround yourself with. And self-sabotage looks like telling yourself that none of that is possible, that this is what it is. I've always been this way. I'm stuck this way. So it is that concept of I can't change because I don't want to. It really fundamentally, it's in your mind. I don't want to because it's frightening. So the other aspect of self-sabotage involves not doing new things, not trying new things, not traveling, not going to new places, being very hesitant to get outside of the normal structure and routine of what you've been doing for years, maybe even if it isn't very good for you. So again, it's being stuck in those cycles of not very productive days, feeling like you're burning the candle at both ends, drinking multiple cups of coffee just to give yourself energy, not eating enough quality nutrition, but not really wanting to do anything about it either because you're afraid of that change. And the sabotage comes in where you know in your mind that something needs to change, something's got to give, but you don't. And you don't because it is, again, comfortable to stay where you were because you're afraid of the change. You're afraid of the thing that might happen, the terrible things that might happen, or that you might not be able to do it. And a lot of people tell me that. Oh, what happens if I can't do it? What happens if I can't stick to it? I'm really scared I'm going to stuff up. Yes, you're going to stuff up, and that's okay. Part of preventing self-sabotage is learning to be okay with making mistakes. Mistakes, I wish we could change the word because mistakes has such a taboo attached kind of idea to it. It's like, I made a mistake. You know, it's like when you're writing with pen, you made a mistake with pen. It's like, oh, fuck, I'm going to throw the page out. Right? We're like, oh, mistakes. I make so many mistakes. And mistakes are honestly this, right? The way I see mistakes is you've got a whole canvas that you're painting with. And you have a blank canvas when you start any sort of project or anything that you want to change in your life, or you want to learn something. It's a blank. Sometimes you might have a little bit of paint on it already. You might know a little bit about it. You might have a bit of a skill, but it's mostly blank for the ones that you're going to struggle with the most. And it's daunting because you've got this blank canvas in front of you and you think, if I stuff this up, that's it. I've got to throw it out. But the interesting thing about a canvas is that you can paint over the top of it and paint another layer and another layer. Then you can paint it white again. Might take a few layers, but you can get it back to white and start again, or you can paint one area white and then start working on it again. And you're going to see textures behind it, but the important thing is that you can work on it. You can change it. You can adjust it. If you make a mistake, sometimes the mistake is actually a wonderful thing. It turns out being a masterpiece. That's how some of the best pieces of artwork were created in history, were by mistake. And that's the point. Mistakes are just that. They're just mistakes. But they're just parts of a not so linear journey. We talk about success not being a linear journey, and everybody always uses this analogy that success is not a straight line. And when most people try and achieve something pretty substantial in their lives before they've done so before, that they'll kind of jump on this bandwagon and they hope that this is just this straight and narrow, and they envision it, they look at it and they go, straight and narrow, that's where I'm going, my journey is just one big old road. Now, have you ever driven on a road that didn't have some sort of, and I mean a long journey, some sort of potholes, some sort of turn-offs, you might have had to stop over somewhere overnight. Long journeys and anything that requires a significant amount of effort is going to take you a long time. You're going to come across challenges. You're going to come across times where you can't get it perfect, and you shouldn't. And that leads me to my next point. Perfectionism, being perfect. A common problem I see with coaching is that people are suckers for perfectionism. And they get to their check-ins with me, or they message me and they go, Mariah, I stuffed up and oh my God, the whole week's ruined. And that's where that self-sabotage can potentially start to spiral. I stuffed up, the whole week's ruined, so I may as well ruin the rest. And I use the analogy, if you've shot yourself in the right foot, why are you shooting yourself in the left? All right, you just shot yourself in the right. If you shoot yourself in the left, you've got no feet left. So just be okay with that shot in the foot. This is very much hypothetical. Be okay with it. It hurts, it sucks, shit. I just shot myself in the foot. But the left foot is still good. And you know what? Shooting yourself in the left foot isn't going to make the right foot better. It's not going to do any of that. You've just got to accept it. The next point on that point is drastic acceptance. Something, I think, a concept that I came up with, and I suppose I didn't really come up with it because it's not original, but it's a terminology I use, drastic acceptance, and I've heard it somewhere. That's what I'll say. Accepting when shit goes wrong, that it just did. And yes, maybe you had a part to play in it. What can you do about that after it's done? Not much, and that sucks. You know, sometimes you're looking at the pieces on the floor and you think, that's not what I wanted. No, probably not. But again, beating yourself up, being nasty to yourself, saying shit things about yourself, talking down to yourself, all of those things probably, yes, channel your emotion that you've got around what you did and what happened, or maybe what you didn't do. Maybe something happened to you, but it doesn't resolve anything. But it doesn't even contribute to anything. If anything, it feeds that fuel that you keep I suppose you keep giving energy to. It's like, if we continue that thought pattern, those negative thought patterns, and that the negative self-talk, of course, will be stuck that way. And there are a lot of, honestly, a lot of mental health issues that people now have and struggle with daily. And I honestly do see labels that people get from, psychologists these days as no longer a stigma, but almost like a little bit of a booklet, guidelines to your persona. And I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder when I was 20 because in order to have pretty severe anorexia and bulimia, borderline personality disorder kind of goes hand in hand with the eating disorders. And BPD is basically this idea that, for different people it means different things. Some people have silent BPD, which is what I have, and some people are very overt with it. But it basically means that you kind of walk around in life thinking that not many people like you very much, and you're kind of looking for reasons to not like yourself. And it's crazy, but and I don't mean crazy, but it is crazy, but you have to catch yourself doing it. And that comes into self-awareness. It's something I've learnt to do over time. It took years and years and years and years of practice of pulling myself up on things. And I actually used to have to get mad at myself for saying shit things about myself. It's kind of like having the angel and devil on the shoulder, and we all have that. We've all got that negative voice in the backs of our minds, and self-doubt, and that's the voice that feeds the self-sabotage. Like, we know that it's there, and we're not crazy. We don't have voices in our head. Even then, if you do, it's totally okay. I'm a big supporter of normalizing mental health. I wouldn't even call them issues. I'm just going to say mental health struggles, because I prefer that type of terminology. But all of us have these struggles with what's going on internally with us. And sometimes it happens silently. Sometimes we're just walking around and we're thinking it. We might be at the shopping centre thinking someone's just staring at us and thinking that, our outfit looks silly. You've got to catch yourself. From the moment you wake up in the morning to the moment that you go to sleep at night, the way that you talk to yourself will determine your experience of your day. It's going to determine your experience of your day. And so if you continue, honestly, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, it's not even saying negative things about what's happening in your day. It could be anything. This went wrong, and this went wrong, and I did this, and I stuffed up, and I'm terrible. And it could be happening all internally. That's self-sabotage, right? That's the start of self-sabotage. That's the seed that gets planted. And the continuation and growth of self-sabotage means we have to water it. Means we have to keep beating ourselves up. We have to keep feeling guilty. We have to keep feeling those emotions, those shitty emotions around what we did or said or didn't do, to continue that self-sabotage onwards. It's very normal to plant the seed. It's very normal to have those very sporadic thoughts, right? We all have them. It's so quick into our minds, to jump into our minds. But it's important to catch the seed before it grows. You know, I think today I probably have had a couple of shitty negative thoughts about myself already. And what I will often do is have a conversation with myself. As I really encourage inner dialogue, you know, or monologue, whatever it is, whether it's a voice or whether it's thoughts, I don't know. Some people have different styles of how they talk to themselves. Some people say things out loud. Sometimes I say things out loud and it helps as well. Some people write things down and that helps. But it's having that conversation with yourself. If you've noticed that the only conversation you're ever having is negative, you have a disconnect with your self-love, with the part of you that absolutely needs to exist for you to thrive. And success and, you know, being able to move past failure, mistakes, they seem like terrible words. They're actually not terrible words. Being able to move past these struggles, I'll call them, hiccups, learning curves, like really, we'll start framing them differently and we'll see them differently. Moving past these requires establishing that connection to that voice, that nice voice in your head, right? And we don't always have to rely on other people telling us nice things for that to happen. This nice voice, it does exist. There has to be some point in time in your life where you gave yourself a pat on the back, or you said to yourself, I believe in you. I can do this. I'm good at this. I want this. I'm excited for this. And it's the type of language you're using with yourself and other people as well. It's what you're putting out into the world. And if you find yourself spiraling back into that self-sabotage pattern, try and catch it before it grows. Try and catch it before it grows. And you can usually feel it when it's getting bigger. And it's kind of like that. It's like a little monster really growing under the earth. You can feel it when it's getting bigger and it's creeping up on you. But I can guarantee you that you will become more successful at your endeavors and what you're wanting to achieve over time, mind you, even on a daily basis or from hour to hour, if you simply learn how to move forward and look for the good things that you're wanting to achieve. Look for the good things that you are achieving. Look for the wonderful things about yourself. Celebrate your wins as loudly as you can and never apologize for it. Turning around self-sabotage. There's no sort of magical way of doing it. It's not like successful people walk around and they're gifted. That's not the case at all. Gifted people work really hard to get to where they are. And of course they had imposter syndrome. Of course they had thoughts in their minds that they weren't good enough, or they might not have done enough, or that they needed to do this or they needed to do that. And a combination of their own self-talk gets them to a better place. Sometimes, yes, surrounding yourself with a better support network can help a lot as well. If we are surrounded by negative people, and if we have shitty negative people in our lives, and I've said this before, we're probably going to have a more negative experience of life. It's going to be a lot harder for us. So outside of self-sabotage and saying nasty things to yourself and putting yourself down and, you know, feeding that monster, if you surround yourself with people who also feed the monster, that could be feeding into it as well. So having a solution for a lot of this is quite heavy. It's a lot of work. And by all means, don't just listen to this podcast and this vlog. You know, if you think that you're pretty bad for this, the self-sabotage is so chronic, it's happening all the time, that it's really affecting your mental health on a daily basis, it's affecting your relationship with yourself and with others, and you are really your thoughts are spiraling, please make sure that you seek some help from a psychologist, a mental health worker, a social worker, because that can make a big difference too. I spent years in therapy myself, and it's an admission I'm happy to tell people. I saw a psychologist, I saw numerous psychologists, and I found a few that worked for me, and I pulled a lot of really wonderful things from that, and I still use the tools that I learned with them, you know, to this day. So another form of self-sabotage is procrastination. Procrastination is actually a way of sabotaging what you're meant to be achieving for the day. And this can look like, honestly, it can come in the form of dilly-dallying and stuffing around and doing something else that you're not meant to be doing and avoiding. And I used to do it with my training. I just would kind of like put it off for as long as possible because I knew it was going to be hard. That's a form of self-sabotage. And it's because you're avoiding something that you are sometimes very fearful of being maybe worse than what it might be, or that you might be exacerbating, you might not, it might be really scary for you, but you're avoiding it. Instead of doing it, you're just not doing it. And this can come in the way of meal prep. I see procrastination with meal prep with clients quite a lot. I don't have time, or I can't be bothered, or I just didn't get around to it. And really, there is no reason why you can't do meal prep. Everybody has a spare 1 to 2 hours in their week. And if you don't, remove something from your week to put the meal prep in. But see, to be able to get to that position of, changing the way you think about your meal prep, you actually have to be solutions focused. You actually have to be open to solutions and ideas for yourself. You have to be open to solutions and ideas that people who are helping you, like coaches and mentors in your life, want to give you. And you've got to be open to receiving it, not as criticism, but as a way to move forward and improve. And that's a very wonderful, positive thing, and that you can feel very accomplished from it. So it's attaching yourself to the positive thing that happens after the hard thing so that you can get through it, and it can become habitual. So self-sabotage, some people do it with meal prep, some people do it with their training, some people do it with their relationships as well. They stay in toxic relationships, or they stay in a job that they hate. My rule when it comes to careers is, do you love what you do? Your parents used to say, like, I don't care what you do as long as you love what you do. And if they didn't, well, please just, do what you love. Always do what you love. Do you love what you do? If you don't, if you can say, I hate my job, I don't like doing what I'm doing, it might be an idea to start thinking about what you might like doing. Because a form of self-sabotage is staying in a situation where you're unhappy, but you know that it's too hard to change it. Or in your mind, here's the weird thing, maybe it's not too hard to change it. Maybe you're telling yourself it's too hard to change it. And that's the seed of self-sabotage. And it grows and it grows and it grows, and you can end up in a job for 30 years that you just despise. But you don't want to change. You don't want to go and learn anything differently because you know it's going to take effort, and because you're thinking negatively about that process instead of thinking about the growth that can come from that change. So self-sabotage will always come back to negative related thoughts to what you're trying to achieve, that is what you want, is actually the happiness in your career, happiness in your relationship, happiness with the way you feel about yourself physically and mentally, happiness in your friendships, happiness in your home environment. Self-sabotage is putting yourself in a position where even when you know that there might be a little bit of a scarish of hope or a way out, that you, instead of taking that path, you avoid it, you procrastinate about it, you put it off because you're afraid of the change, and you don't believe in yourself, you don't think you can get through it. Most of achieving lots of things in life is literally the idea in your mind that you can. You can. And it helps having other people believing in you as well. I think sometimes instilling this in my clients is one of the most wonderful things I've ever experienced, is like having faith in them, what they've never had in themselves, and then seeing them actually start to have faith in themselves as well. Sometimes it's got to be a joint effort. A lot of self-sabotage will come from surrounding yourself with people who want to see you happy as well, but you've got to be willing and open to the ideas. You've got to be willing and open to, even some people might say that it's constructive criticism. I don't necessarily like even using that word, but you've got to be open to the idea that you are capable of change, and you are capable of shifting from where you are, and you are not stuck in the mud. You are not cemented to the ground. And moving and shifting and changing and evolving and growing is a process that you're going to have to normalize, because it's something you're going to do for the rest of your life. And if you aren't willing to do that, and you want to stay the same, and you want to stay stagnant, that can be a form of self-sabotage, because in the back of your mind somewhere, that really nice voice over here, that you're capable of it, that you can do it. If you want it, if it's a thought in your mind, you do want it enough to eventually action it. And there's a difference between being stagnant and being just content. Sometimes we're content in life. I don't think that's self-sabotage. That is literally just living in the moment and enjoying where you are. And sometimes that's exactly what the opposite of self-sabotage is. It's actually being able to be grateful for what you have achieved, for what you have done, for who you are, for the wonderful things about yourself, for who you are as a family member, a friend, a mother, a woman, a man. a being, a human being, the identity that you've taken on, whatever it might be, whoever you want to be. Sometimes it is recognizing you might have finished a book, you might be going through a really shit time in your life, and you may have just made yourself a coffee and made the bed for the day. The opposite of self-sabotage is celebrating the very small wins to take away from the times that you weren't so happy with what you did, because we are human. You're a human being, you are not perfect, you cannot be perfect, and you must get used to telling yourself that it's okay. Everything is okay if it isn't perfect. If it was perfect, where would we have to go? We wouldn't have any sort of challenge. We wouldn't have any sort of experience of ups and downs, would we? It would be pretty bloody boring. It'd be pretty boring. So self-sabotage, I think this topic in particular is much easier to tackle over time. I think you might have to listen to this podcast a few times to really get it right. But it takes practice. It's like riding a bike, being kind to yourself, believing in yourself, setting goals, having hope, looking outside of that negative range and those negative thought patterns and the really nasty things you've been saying to yourself, and the very closed-minded type of approach to pretty much anything in life. It takes time, it takes practice, it takes effort, it takes reprogramming the subconscious psyche by consciously making decisions to literally reprogram your brain and think differently and see things differently. And I can assure you that after you've listened to this podcast, that you will be able to list at least 3 things about yourself that you love. So that's it from me for this vlog and podcast. Another one coming to you soon. It was really lovely putting this together, and I get quite passionate in podcasts, so I do apologize if if I've blown your ears out today. But make sure that you identify your self-sabotage triggers where you can, work on them where you can, and I assure you that you will start to experience success more than ever. Thanks a lot. Bye.